I never imagined my life would split in two under crystal chandeliers and camera flashes. I stood frozen as the music died, and every eye turned toward me. I felt the weight of 1,000 stares before I felt the paper pressed into my hand. Legal documents, my name printed in ink that trembled as much as I did. In that moment, I knew the past had finally found me. Across the room stood Alexander Crown, untouchable, flawless, smiling for the cameras. He had everything: money, power, a legacy wrapped in gold. And I had one thing that could tear it all down. My son. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Storyverse Vault. Your home, your safe place, your family. Before the story starts, stay with me for just a few seconds. This moment is for you. Heavenly Father, we come before you with humble hearts. Cover every woman in this family with strength that never breaks, dignity that never fades, and peace that calms every storm. Give them health in their bodies, rest in their minds, and light in their hearts. These women carry families with patience, love without limits, and silent sacrifices the world rarely sees. Reward them with protection, joy, and the honor they truly deserve. Let no woman here feel forgotten, weak, or finished. Raise them as pillars of love, grace, and quiet power. Amen. My beautiful family, I mean this deeply. Every story you hear here is told with my heart for you. When you stay till the end, when you like and comment, you remind me that this family's real and growing stronger every day. It takes 1 second, but it means everything. If this message touched you, tap the like button. And if you believe in real love, powerful stories, and a family that truly cares, subscribe and become part of the Storyverse Vault family. Now, take a deep breath. Let's unlock today's story together. The night unraveled in slow motion. Alexander Crown's smile faded as whispers spread through the hall. Guests leaned closer, hungry for scandal. Reporters lifted cameras like weapons. The papers accused him of fathering a child he had never acknowledged, a crown heir hidden in plain sight. Maya stood alone, her hands shaking but her spine straight. She did not look rich. She did not look powerful. She looked tired and dangerous in a way money could never be. Alexander's lawyers moved fast, surrounding him like armor. He did not speak. He only stared at the woman who refused to look away. Maya had once believed in quiet lives. She used to sit in lecture halls with borrowed textbooks and impossible dreams. A scholarship student with no safety net. Now she balanced plates instead of futures. Waitress by day, mother by night. Leo waited for her every evening with homework spread across a small kitchen table. She never told him about the threats, the anonymous messages, the warning that said she should stay silent if she loved her child. That was when she knew silence was no longer an option. She did not come for revenge. She came for protection. Alexander Crown had built his empire on control. Every narrative, every outcome. He was a man who erased mistakes before they formed. The public adored his discipline. His engagement to Victoria sealed his image as a family man. But the past does not stay buried forever. When he saw the child standing beside Maya at the edge of the ballroom, something inside him fractured. The boy's eyes met his. Too familiar, too sharp. Alexander denied knowing the woman, denied everything. Yet his gaze never left the child. I told myself I could handle the whispers. I told myself I could survive the headlines. But when they called me a liar on national television, my chest burned. They said I planned this. They said I trapped him. They said my son was a weapon. Alexander's team offered money with cold smiles, enough to disappear forever. I pushed the envelope back across the table. My voice shook, but my answer did not. My son is not for sale. I walked out knowing the war had just begun. The court ordered a DNA test within days. The world watched like it was entertainment. Alexander arrived composed. Maya arrived holding Leo's hand. The results came sealed and final. Inconclusive. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The lab blamed contamination. A mistake. An accident. Maya felt the truth slipping through her fingers. Power had found another way to protect itself. That night, Leo asked the question Maya feared most. Am I the reason you're scared? Her breath caught. She knelt in front of him and held his face. "You are the reason I fight." Tears fell where strength had lived all day. She promised him safety even though she had none to give. She promised him love even if the world turned cruel. Family came before truth, before power, before fear. Alexander sat alone in his penthouse as the city pulsed below. He stared at a private DNA kit hidden in his desk. Memories surfaced uninvited. One night, one woman, one choice he never revisited. He ordered surveillance on Maya out of instinct, then canceled it minutes later. Control felt different now, unsteady. For the first time, doubt entered his empire. Maya stood by her window as rain traced lines down the glass. She knew this fight would cost her everything. She also knew she would never stop. Somewhere across the city, Alexander Crown wrestled with a truth he could no longer outrun. Two lives moving toward collision, one child standing between them, and a system that never sided with mothers. The battle for the crown heir had only begun. The morning after the inconclusive result, the city decided who Maya was. News anchors repeated her name with practiced doubt. Panels debated her motives without ever inviting her voice. Comment sections turned cruelty into sport. Alexander's statement aired on every channel, calm and dismissive. He called the accusation unfortunate and untrue. He expressed concern for the child involved while denying responsibility. Maya watched from a cracked phone screen during her bus ride to work. Each word felt engineered to sound kind while destroying her credibility. She lowered the volume when Leo sat beside her. At the restaurant, customers whispered as Maya passed their tables. Some stared with curiosity, others with judgment sharpened by envy. Her manager asked her to take the back shift indefinitely, not as punishment, as protection for the brand. Maya nodded without arguing. She needed the hours. She needed stability for Leo. That night, an unmarked car idled outside her apartment longer than necessary. Fear settled where exhaustion lived. Alexander convened his inner circle behind closed doors. Lawyers spoke in layers of strategy and probability. Public relations outlined damage control timelines. Someone suggested a private settlement. Someone else suggested delay until interest faded. Alexander listened without interrupting. He approved nothing. When the room cleared, he remained seated, staring at nothing. For the first time, no option felt clean. Legacy demanded certainty. The truth threatened chaos. I told myself fear was temporary. I told myself I had survived worse nights than this. But when Leo didn't come home from school on time, my chest tightened. I called his teacher, then the office, then the front desk. Each answer landed wrong. Minutes stretched into something dangerous. When he finally walked through the door, I held him too tightly. I realized then how easily they could break me and how carefully I had to move. Alexander opened the private DNA kit after midnight. No witnesses, no lawyers, just his hands and the instructions he read twice. He stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror before swabbing his cheek. The man looking back did not resemble certainty. He sealed the sample with precision. When he hid it in a locked drawer, his pulse refused to slow. He had crossed a line he once controlled. Maya met the retired geneticist through a quiet referral, an old man with careful eyes and no interest in headlines. He listened more than he spoke. He agreed to help without promises. The sample was taken discreetly. Leo asked if it would hurt. Maya smiled and said no. Inside, hope and terror collided. Truth felt close enough to burn. The results arrived sooner than expected. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. Maya waited until Leo slept before opening it. 99.99%. Her hands trembled as the meaning settled. Relief surged first, then fear. Truth had weight, and weight attracted force. She hid the document beneath loose floorboards. Alexander received his private result at dawn. He read it once, then again. Positive. The word stripped him of air. Years of discipline fractured under a single truth. He imagined the boy's eyes, the curve of his jaw. He sat in silence as the city woke. Power suddenly felt small. Responsibility felt enormous. Maya planned to go public within days. She rehearsed her words while folding laundry. She imagined a courtroom where evidence mattered. She did not hear the door open. The sound that followed was not loud, just final. When she turned, Leo was gone. The room felt hollowed out. I screamed his name until my throat failed me. Everything else vanished. The police station smelled like disinfectant and impatience. Maya repeated Leo's name until it stopped sounding real. An officer typed slowly, eyes already tired. He asked about custody agreements, about the father, about past disputes. Each question felt like an accusation dressed as procedure. They said children sometimes wandered. They said she should wait. Maya's hand slammed the counter before she realized she had moved. My child does not wander. I walked out into the street with nothing but fear and a phone that would not ring. Every sound became a threat. Every passing car felt deliberate. I called Alexander Crown because I had run out of doors to knock on. When his assistant answered, my voice broke through professionalism. Tell him they took my son. Silence followed, then a pause too careful to be accidental. In that space, doubt cut deeper than panic. Alexander received the message during a board briefing. The room stopped when he stood. He did not explain. He did not ask permission. He left men who had never seen him shaken, staring at an empty chair. In the elevator, he replayed Victoria's recent questions. Her sudden concern, her calculated calm. Patterns formed too late. For the first time, anger overrode strategy. Victoria sat alone in her penthouse, pouring wine she did not drink. She told herself it was necessary, that children complicated legacies, that women like Maya always wanted more. When her phone buzzed with Alexander's name, she smiled too slowly. She answered with practiced warmth. She denied everything, but denial sounded thin even to her. Fear crept in where control once lived. Maya searched places no one suggested. Bus terminals, playgrounds, school routes she had memorized for years. Every shadow held possibility. Every stranger became suspect. Hours passed without mercy. When the police finally called back, their tone had changed. They said a private security firm was involved. They said the name Crown had surfaced. The world tilted. Alexander confronted Victoria without witnesses. The apartment felt colder than its marble floors. He asked once. She answered wrong. Her words unraveled under pressure. She spoke of protection, of legacy, of sacrifices that had to be made. When she admitted arranging the removal, the silence became violent. Alexander's voice dropped. You crossed a line that cannot be erased. I sat on the floor of Leo's room, surrounded by things he left behind. A half-built model, a school notebook with my name written in the margin. I pressed my forehead to the carpet and breathed through the pain. I told myself breaking would help no one. If power had taken my child, I would walk into its center. I would not beg. I would demand. Alexander activated resources he had never used for anything human. Private investigators, global security contacts, transportation records no court could touch. Within hours, a location surfaced. A private estate outside the city. Discreet, untraceable, designed to disappear people gently. Alexander stared at the address and understood the cost of his world. The estate gates opened without resistance. Leo sat in a sunlit room meant to feel safe. He looked smaller than Alexander remembered. When the boy saw him, fear flickered before curiosity. Alexander knelt slowly, removing his jacket like a surrender. I'm here to take you home. Leo did not answer, but he stood, and that was enough. The drive back felt longer than distance allowed. Leo sat silently in the back seat, hands folded, eyes forward. Alexander watched him through the mirror without staring. Every instinct told him to speak. Every mistake told him to wait. When the city lights reappeared, Leo finally broke the silence. Are you the reason my mom cries at night? The question landed clean and unforgiving. Alexander did not lie. I might be. Maya felt Leo before she saw him. Her body reacted faster than thought. She ran down the courthouse steps barefoot, ignoring shouts behind her. When Leo stepped out of the car, she dropped to her knees. She held him like he could vanish again. Alexander stood several feet away, hands empty, expression stripped of power. He watched a reunion money could never buy. The crowd gathered without sound. Some moments demanded silence. I did not thank him. I did not accuse him. I looked at him once and understood something had shifted. You don't get to disappear again, I said. My voice did not shake. If you're involved, you stay visible. Alexander nodded without defense. It was the first honest agreement between us. Not legal, human. Victoria's arrest unfolded quietly. No cameras, no spectacle, just handcuffs and a reputation dissolving behind closed doors. Her lawyers spoke of misunderstanding. Alexander did not intervene. He released a single statement accepting responsibility for enabling harm. The board reacted immediately. Emergency meetings. Share prices trembled. Legacy began to crack from the inside. The second court date arrived without celebration. Maya entered holding Leo's hand. Alexander walked beside them without entitlement. The judge ordered a final DNA confirmation. Independent, international, public. No room left for influence. The room felt heavier than before. Truth was no longer chasing power. It was cornering it. Waiting became its own punishment. Days passed under cameras and speculation. Leo returned to school under security. Maya slept in fragments. Alexander withdrew from meetings he once commanded. Each of them carried a different fear. Losing a child, becoming a father, discovering too late that damage could not be undone. The envelope finally arrived, sealed, final. The judge opened the document without ceremony. The courtroom leaned forward as one body. Positive. The word echoed beyond sound. Maya closed her eyes as breath returned to her lungs. Alexander felt something unfamiliar press behind his ribs. Relief did not arrive alone. Neither did guilt. Both stayed. Both permanent. I felt the truth settle like weight and warmth combined. This was not victory. This was clarity. I looked at Leo. He looked back without fear. In that exchange, I understood my role had never changed. Mother first, everything else negotiable. Outside, reporters waited for collapse or celebration. They got neither. Alexander announced his resignation hours later. He cited personal accountability. He did not mention inheritance. He did not mention empire. He requested privacy to build something smaller and real. Maya declined interviews. She went home with her son. The battle had ended. The work had not. The house felt unfamiliar with Leo back inside it. Not because he was gone long, because fear had rearranged everything. Maya locked the door twice without thinking. She checked windows she had trusted for years. Leo moved quietly, watching her more than the television. Safety had returned, but peace had not followed yet. Outside, a black sedan waited longer than necessary. Power did not leave easily. Alexander stood on the edge of a life he no longer recognized. His office had been cleared with professional speed. Awards packed into boxes by assistants who avoided his eyes. The board's farewell had been polite and brief. He signed documents that severed decades of authority. When it was done, silence rushed in. No schedule waited for him. No empire demanded direction. Only one obligation remained: a boy who shared his blood. I told myself boundaries were protection, not punishment. When Alexander requested time with Leo, I did not answer immediately. I watched my son sleep that night, steady and unaware. I remembered every sacrifice that brought us here. Trust was not a gift. It was earned slowly or not at all. I agreed to a supervised visit. Public place, daylight, clear rules. My heart did not celebrate. It prepared. The park buzzed with ordinary life. Children ran without fear. Parents scrolled through phones. Alexander arrived early, dressed without armor. No suit, no entourage. He sat on a bench like he belonged there. When Leo approached, Alexander stood, then stopped himself. He waited. The boy closed the distance on his own terms. Alexander spoke carefully, not rehearsed. He asked about school, about favorite subjects, about soccer. Leo answered honestly but without warmth. Trust did not bloom on command. When Leo asked why he left before knowing him, Alexander inhaled slowly. I made choices that were easy for me, he said. They were not right. The truth landed quietly, but it stayed. I watched every movement without appearing to. I studied tone, distance, patience. Alexander did not reach for what wasn't offered. That mattered. When Leo laughed at something small, my chest tightened, not with jealousy, with fear of loss. I reminded myself love was not divided by presence. It multiplied when handled carefully. Still, I kept my guard high. Some walls existed for survival. After the visit, Alexander returned to an apartment stripped of identity. No assistants, no schedules. He cooked badly and ate standing up. For the first time, no one applauded his effort. He replayed the boy's laugh in his head. It unsettled him more than any boardroom defeat. Power had trained him to win quickly. Fatherhood demanded something slower, something irreversible. Maya received a letter instead of a call, handwritten, careful. Alexander outlined intentions, not demands. He acknowledged harm without excuse. He asked for structure, for guidance, for the chance to show consistency. Maya read it twice, then folded it once. This was not forgiveness, but it was effort, and effort mattered. That night, Leo asked if Alexander would come again. Maya answered without promise or refusal. "We'll see how he shows up," she said. Leo nodded, satisfied by honesty. Maya turned off the light and stood alone in the dark. The battle had shifted shape. No longer loud, no longer public. This one would be fought in choices made daily, quietly, relentlessly. The next weeks moved without headlines. No cameras waited outside Maya's building. No analysts debated paternity on late-night panels. Life returned in fragments. School mornings, packed lunches, homework spread across the table. Alexander showed up when agreed and left when time ended. He never argued the limits. Consistency replaced apology, slowly, deliberately. Alexander learned quickly that presence was exhausting. He attended school meetings where his name meant nothing. He waited in lines. He listened more than he spoke. Leo tested him with silence, with indifference, with questions that arrived without warning. Alexander answered what he could and admitted what he couldn't. Authority offered no shortcuts here. Only patience earned ground. I noticed the changes before I trusted them. Alexander stopped dressing like an announcement. He stopped speaking in conclusions. He asked before deciding. When Leo refused a visit one afternoon, Alexander accepted it. No persuasion, no guilt. That choice unsettled me more than resistance would have. Power was learning restraint. That mattered more than words. Victoria's trial date surfaced quietly in the news cycle. The coverage was brief, no sympathy, no spectacle. The public moved on faster than anyone expected. Alexander did not comment. Maya did not watch. Some stories demanded distance to heal. Closure did not arrive as relief. It arrived as space to breathe. Alexander sold properties he no longer needed, not to make statements, to simplify. He moved into a smaller place closer to Leo's school. The apartment echoed at first, then it learned routine. A toothbrush by the sink that wasn't his, a spare jacket by the door, signs of a future he had never planned for. I met Alexander without Leo present for the first time. Neutral ground, public cafe, no lawyers, no documents. We spoke about schedules and boundaries, about holidays and emergencies, about trust built through predictability. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said one sentence. "Lead, I'll follow." I watched his face for performance. I found none. Leo's questions changed over time. They grew less guarded, more curious. He asked about Alexander's childhood, about mistakes, about why adults sometimes fail before they learned. Alexander answered without shielding himself. The boy did not judge. He absorbed. Understanding grew quietly between them. I felt something loosen inside me I hadn't named before. Not trust, not forgiveness. Relief from carrying everything alone. For the first time, responsibility was shared without force. That frightened me more than solitude ever had. Letting go required courage I was still learning. But I did not pull back. I adjusted, carefully. One evening, Leo fell asleep on Alexander's couch after a long day. Alexander did not move. He sat still, afraid of breaking the moment. When Maya arrived, she found them like that. A boy at rest. A man learning restraint. No declarations were made. No promises spoken. Just presence. Sometimes that was enough to change direction. The quiet did not last. It never does when money remembers what it lost. Alexander received notice of a civil action from his former board before breakfast. Breach of fiduciary duty, reputational damage. They wanted distance from the child and control over the narrative. They framed it as concern for shareholders. Alexander read the filing once and set it down. This was not about business. It was about erasing a boy from a legacy that no longer obeyed them. Maya learned about the lawsuit from a parent at the school gate, not from Alexander, Not from the news. From a whisper sharpened by curiosity. Her chest tightened as she scanned the headlines on her phone. The language was careful but clear. They questioned her stability, her motives, her influence on Leo. Power had returned with a cleaner face, and it was aiming lower this time. I did not panic. I organized. Fear had taught me that much. I called my lawyer before calling Alexander. I documented everything. School records, medical visits, every routine that proved normalcy. When I finally called him, my voice stayed level. "This is coming from my son," I said. Alexander did not argue. He did not minimize. "I know," he answered, "and it stops here." Alexander met with counsel that afternoon, not the ones who once guarded his empire. New advisors, unconnected, unimpressed. They spoke plainly about risk and exposure, about how custody could become leverage, about how Leo would be positioned as an asset. Alexander listened and made a decision that surprised them. He would not counterattack. He would not bury the story. He would go on record as a father. The interview aired at night. No dramatic music, no curated set. Alexander sat in a plain chair and answered direct questions. He acknowledged harm caused by absence. He rejected any attempt to remove Leo from his mother. He stated clearly that shared parenting was non-negotiable. Markets reacted instantly, stock dipped, public response fractured, but one thing became undeniable. He had chosen a side. Leo felt the shift before anyone explained it. Kids at school asked questions they didn't understand. Teachers offered careful smiles. He came home quieter than usual. When Maya asked what was wrong, he hesitated. "They talk about me like I'm not there," he said. Maya sat beside him and waited. He leaned into her shoulder. Being seen had costs no child should carry. I lay awake that night counting risks instead of hours. Every choice now echoed further. I wondered if loving him publicly had exposed him unnecessarily, if privacy would have protected him better. Then I remembered the threats, the silence that almost cost me everything. Hiding had never kept us safe. It had only delayed the danger. I closed my eyes and chose visibility again. Alexander arrived early for the next visit. He brought no gifts, only time. Leo did not rush to him. He asked a question instead. "Do you regret saying my name out loud?" Alexander considered the weight of it. "No," he said. "I regret not saying it sooner." Leo nodded once. The answer satisfied something unspoken. The board escalated within days. Emergency injunction, temporary custody review. They framed it as stability assessment. Maya read the notice without shaking. Alexander stood beside her without instruction. This would be decided in court, not by money, not by fear, by who showed up consistently when it mattered. The next battle would not be quiet, and neither of them would face it alone. The courthouse felt colder than before, not from weather, from intention. Maya walked in, holding Leo's hand, steady and visible. Alexander followed one step behind, not leading, not hiding. Across the room, the board's legal team arranged themselves with precision. They smiled without warmth. This was not a custody hearing to them. It was an acquisition attempt. The judge reviewed filings without looking up. Words like stability, influence, exposure filled the air. They spoke about Leo as if he were a variable, an outcome, a risk profile. Maya's lawyer countered with facts, school records, medical consistency, community testimony. Normalcy documented line by line. Alexander listened without interrupting. This was not his moment to speak. I felt the weight of every assumption pressed onto my spine. They questioned my income without asking about my hours. They questioned my choices without naming my sacrifices. When they implied instability, I stood. Not loudly, not emotionally. "I have raised my son without incident for 10 years, I said. "My life is not quiet because it is weak." The room shifted. Some truths did not need embellishment. Alexander was called last. He took the stand without rehearsed authority. He spoke about absence, about accountability, about choosing participation over control. When asked why he stepped down from his company, he answered simply, "Because no role matters more than being present for my child." The board's counsel objected. The judge allowed the statement. Some priorities outranked relevance. The injunction was denied. Temporary custody remained unchanged. The ruling was not dramatic, it was firm. The judge cited continuity, attachment, demonstrated care. Leo squeezed Maya's hand once under the table. She squeezed back. Alexander closed his eyes briefly, not in relief, in acceptance. This was how trust was built, increment by increment. Outside reporters waited for spectacle. They received none. Maya declined comment without apology. Alexander released a brief statement reaffirming boundaries. No counterclaims, no retaliation. The board withdrew quietly by evening. Power did not always retreat loudly. Sometimes it simply recalculated and moved on. This time, it did not win. Life resumed with careful adjustments. School pickups remained routine. Visits followed schedule. Alexander began coaching Leo's weekend soccer practices. Not as a leader, as support. He carried water bottles. He listened to instructions. He learned names. Presence reshaped him faster than consequence ever had. I noticed Leo's shoulders relax over time. He slept deeper. He laughed louder. The questions slowed. He no longer asked if people would take him again. Instead, he asked who would pick him up on Friday. That difference mattered more than any ruling. Stability was not declared. It was practiced, every day. Alexander stood on his balcony that night, city lights distant and irrelevant. He held no documents, no plans. Only the quiet weight of responsibility chosen, not assigned. Across the city, Maya prepared lunches for the next morning. Two lives no longer colliding, moving forward in parallel. The fight for the crown heir had ended. What remained was something harder. Family maintained. The first holiday season arrived without negotiations or lawyers. Just calendars spread across the table, and a pen passed back and forth. Maya marked mornings. Alexander marked afternoons. Leo watched carefully, waiting for tension that never came. When the plan was finished, he smiled once and folded the paper himself. No one corrected him. Ownership mattered. This was his life being mapped, not managed. Alexander struggled with small things that mattered. Choosing the right cereal, remembering permission slips, learning that silence sometimes meant disappointment. Leo corrected him without cruelty. Alexander accepted it without defense. Each misstep rewired instincts built on authority. This role did not reward certainty. It required adjustment, and humility arrived late but stayed. I watched them build something without rushing it. I stayed present without hovering. That balance took effort. Control had once been survival. Now restraint became trust. When Alexander made mistakes, I let them stand. When he showed up on time, I noted it quietly. Patterns mattered more than apologies. Consistency spoke louder than promise. The board's influence faded from conversation, not because it vanished, because it lost relevance. Alexander's former name still carried weight, but it no longer dictated space. New routines replaced old dominance. Meetings were now school plays. Deadlines became bedtime. The shift was not noble, it was necessary. Leo invited Alexander to parent-teacher night without asking permission. The assumption caught Maya off guard. Alexander noticed and waited. Maya nodded once. The classroom buzzed with noise and folding chairs. Alexander listened as the teacher described Leo's focus, his curiosity, his resilience. The words landed heavier than accolades ever had. I felt pride I did not announce, not because my son performed, but because he felt safe enough to include both of us. That was not an accident. It was work done quietly and daily. I reminded myself this was the goal. Not victory, not validation, just safety that endured. Alexander received an invitation he did not expect. A charitable foundation wanted his name back. Quietly, strategically, he declined without hesitation. He suggested anonymous funding instead. For schools, for family services. Influence without ownership felt unfamiliar, but it fit the life he was building. Leo noticed the change before it was explained. Why don't people take pictures with you anymore? Alexander smiled. Because I stopped needing them to. Leo considered this carefully, then returned to his homework. Some answers were complete without applause. That night, Maya and Alexander stood on opposite sides of the kitchen, cleaning up without choreography. No tension filled the gaps, only routine. They spoke about nothing urgent, weather, schedules, dinner plans. The past did not intrude. The future did not demand. For the first time, the present held steady, and it was enough. The first disagreement arrived without warning. It was small, a missed pickup, traffic, a delayed call. But Leo waited longer than expected. When Alexander arrived, apology ready, Maya was already there. She did not raise her voice. She named the impact. Waiting, uncertainty, fear remembered. Alexander listened without defending the reason. He apologized to Leo first, then to Maya. Order mattered. I did not soften the boundary afterward. I explained it. Reliability was not preference. It was requirement. Alexander accepted the condition without negotiation. He set reminders. He adjusted commitments. No excuses followed. Trust was rebuilt not through perfection, but through repair done correctly. That difference stayed with me. Alexander began attending therapy quietly. No press, no announcements. He did not frame it as growth. He framed it as responsibility. Unlearning control took effort he had never budgeted for. The sessions were not comfortable. They were effective. Patterns surfaced. So did accountability. Change stopped being theoretical. It became practiced. Leo noticed when adults corrected themselves. He noticed when apologies came without delay. He tested limits less, not because he was controlled, because he felt contained. Security made space for curiosity. Questions turned playful again. Laughter returned without scanning the room. Children healed in increments adults often missed. A school assignment asked Leo to draw his family. He used one page, not two, not divided. He drew three figures, standing apart but connected by lines. When Maya saw it, her throat tightened. Alexander looked at it longer than necessary. No one commented immediately. Some things needed time to land. I felt something shift that night. Not trust fully formed, not forgiveness declared, but alignment. Our priorities no longer collided. They pointed in the same direction. Protection, stability, care that did not perform, care that stayed. I allowed myself to stop bracing for collapse. Just a little, just enough. Alexander declined another invitation, this one from a political donor circle. Too public, too conditional. He chose a parent volunteer shift instead, carrying supplies, setting up chairs, listening. The work was invisible, which was precisely why it mattered. Power no longer followed him, purpose did. Leo asked one night if they would all live together. The question was neutral, not hopeful, not anxious, just curious. Maya answered carefully, "We'll keep doing what keeps you safe." Alexander nodded. No future was promised, no door was closed. The answer honored process over fantasy, and Leo accepted it. The season ended without resolution headlines, no declarations, no grand unification, just patterns that held under pressure. Maya locked the door less often. Alexander arrived without reminders. Leo slept without listening for footsteps. Nothing dramatic marked the change. That was how they knew it was real.